I was actually I was teaching middle school in Las Vegas. I started teaching because I didn't think I could make it as an artist, and I needed health insurance very bad. And so me and my parents were like, "Yeah, you can do art, and you get summers off, and like you get paid, and you get health benefits." And I found one of those things was true. Like I got benefits, but I was it was the deepest pit in hell. And after like year 3, I was just I was 28 years old and I was miserable with my life. I owned a house, I owned a car, I had everything that I could possibly have to be an adult, but I was miserable. And I always wanted to draw comics when I was a kid, but I didn't think, I could be good enough to make it as an artist professionally or make a living at it. And I actually applied to the Savannah College of Art and Design when I was in high school, and it was too expensive still. So I had to go to a state school, Utah State, and learn how to paint as an illustrator. And then I went back to get my teaching degree. But after like year 3 in Las Vegas, a weird thing happened. SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design, sent me a postcard in the mail in Las Vegas. Somehow they had my name on record for like 10 years. They have some weird black ops stuff where they keep track of you. But they sent me a postcard in the mail in Las Vegas and said that we're going to review portfolios for the graduate program, and you should come and show us your portfolio. And I didn't have anything. I even called my parents. I'm like, these fools want me to draw comics for money. They're like, you need to go. My mom and my dad both said, this is what you've always wanted to do. You're miserable. We feel bad for telling you should teach. Why don't you try plan A first instead of just assuming it won't work? So I didn't have anything to show them really. So I actually just started drawing a comic about my biological father because I didn't know anything else to do. I mean, I didn't really know him very well, and when he left, my mom, I started getting really sick, and it sort of contributed to my medical issues that I have, just all the stress that was going on this happened when I was about 2 years old. But I wanted to figure out I wanted to explore that with this comic, so I just drew this comic about my biological father, and I had like 60 pages, and when SCAD came to Las Vegas, I showed them what I had. I'm like, this is about my father. And they were very nice. The professor that looked at my work, he was like, yeah, I think you could probably fit in pretty well at SCAD. And they actually sent another professor from the sequential art department from Savannah to Las Vegas to look at my portfolio. And I remember we were in the Hampton Inn, but we were in like a weird closet because I guess they couldn't get any other rooms. So we were in the broom closet looking at my portfolio about my father, and the professor's name is Ray Gatto, was like, I think you probably can make a career out of this. You have some storytelling issues to work with and some rendering things, but you should apply. And I applied, and within a couple of weeks they said, we'd like to offer you a full fellowship to SCAD. And I was driving my little tiny Toyota home from work after a particularly bad day, and I almost drove off the bridge. I was so happy. I was like, "Oh my God!" And I had to turn down my Journey. I have a CD I listen to. It's full of Journey and Tina Turner that get me pumped up for the day. I don't drink coffee because I don't need it, obviously. But they called me, and I called my mom and my dad, my stepdad actually at the time, and they said, "Well, get your stuff together. We'll come down and drive you to Savannah, Georgia to go draw comics." I'm like, okay. So I let my house foreclose because in Las Vegas, 2008, the housing bubble ruined everything. So I actually walked away from my house without selling it, put all of my stuff, which is basically a futon, a VHS copy of Fight Club, and the world's crappiest TV in a trailer. And we drove from Las Vegas to Savannah, Georgia, so I can learn how to draw comics. And after about year 1 of my MFA program, I was talking to editors at Dark Horse and all over the place, and they just kept they kept telling me, send in your stuff, just keep sending in your stuff. And I would just keep doing that, and I wouldn't get a response. And I did a short story about Jackson Pollock and one about John Coltrane because I'm a huge nerd. And I'm like, yeah, people love comics about alcoholic artists. Yeah, let's do that. And I turned that into a little zine. And I started handing that out to editors, but again, I went to Heroes Con. I met other artists like Sanford Green and Eric Powell, and they were all really supportive. But I was really worried that I wasn't getting work, and so they told me that I should send my work to other artists and writers instead of editors because they're super busy and they see so much stuff all the time. So I sent my stuff to Sean Gordon Murphy, Jason Aaron, R.M. Guerra, who does Scout, and finally Duncan Fegredo, who at the time was the artist of Hellboy. And I sent my stuff to Duncan. I just said, hey, Duncan, I know this is like out of the blue, but I've always admired your work on Hellboy, and I'm about to ready to, I really would like to work in comics. Can you tell me anything that would help me out? And Duncan Fegredo is probably the nicest human being you'll ever meet. He replied very quickly, and he was like, okay, so I think there's something here that could work. I'm going to send this to the editor-in-chief at Dark Horse and see what they think. And then the next day, literally, editor emailed me back, said, Duncan sent me your stuff. Would you like a job? And I'm like, I absolutely would love a job forever. Thank you. So, he asked me, he's like, so what do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm like, I want to draw comics, and I want you to tell me what to draw, and I will draw it for you, sir. I don't care. I'll just draw comics. You know, I was new. I wanted to be nice, of course, and I was just sort of happy to be there. And they gave me an 8-page short story, and I met the deadline on that one, and they just kept giving me longer projects to do. And Abe Sapien, the Haunted Boy, was the next one-shot I did, and then a Serenity comic. And then I got my first miniseries with Let Me In Crossroads, which is based on the movie Let Me In, which was a remake of the Swedish version of Let the Right One In, one of my favorite vampire movies of all time. And then after that, I just was working pretty steady for Dark Horse after that. And this comic I'm doing now, Bloodstained Teeth, is the first comic that first creator-owned comic that I've done, but also it's the first series that I've done with another publisher, and this is with Image Comics. My first story was called "And What Shall I Find There?" and it was an 8-page short story that was originally published in MySpace Presents. It was about Dr. Broom, who is Hellboy's father, technically. It was his first supernatural adventure. So he's this young Broom, and he goes into a cathedral, and he unearths an ancient demon, and hilarity ensues. You know, and he figures out that, I can kill this demon with fire. And then he's like, ooh, lesson learned. Let's do more of this stuff. And that was the first comic that I did, was that one. And then after that was another short story called The Burial of Catherine Baker. Again, centered in the Mignolaverse, but I think from what I gather that because the work that I do is more realistic, that it's sort of, I had to adjust to fit in that universe. Like Mike Mignola's stuff is very it's simple without being too spare. It's simple but also being incredibly effective. He doesn't need to show you a lot of detail because he's so good at composition and lighting, and also of describing form. You know. So he doesn't need all that stuff. I do, because I really need, I need to put people in a specific place and time and everything, and I need to create light. I'd like to treat light as a character, and I'm a little bit labor intensive about this stuff, and so I had to adjust to be in Mignola's universe basically a little bit. I had to pare down details. I had to make it less stiff. I had to instead of doing a punch where you're connecting with somebody's jaw, you have to draw them past somebody's head, so you're actually following the action past the impact, right? All that kind of nuance and stuff I had to learn sort of on the fly. It was sort of like building an airplane and flying at the same time, right? I was drawing my Abe Sapien comic, and I was like, am I making comics? And the answer is yes, you are, and this is how it's always made. The best, we learn things by doing them. There is no other way. And so, yes, things are going to be wrong, and yes, things are going to be weird and awkward, but you're going to move on, and you're going to be better next time, is how I look at it. So, regardless of how successful I might be. I'm going to take a nap for about 3 months, and then be a person and reintroduce myself to my girlfriend and her dog, and hopefully I'm still a person after that. But the nice thing is my girlfriend is also an artist, and so she knows what this is like. She works in TV and film, and so she's always doing freelance stuff too. So she also understands what it's like to have weeks where you're just focused on one thing. Hopefully, after Bloodstained Teeth wraps up for me in December or early January, probably early January, it'll be something where I'm hoping to work with companies like DC and more. I want to say more Main Street stuff, but like I am always fascinated by like the DC Comics characters. Of course, Batman, but Deadman, all those other characters that like are kind of like not as visible. But I would just love to keep working with Christian Ward, who has written Bloodstained Teeth and co-created, of course. But for me, it's always like I just want to work with good people, and I think like if you work with good people, you'll have good projects, regardless of what characters are there. Man, I have been wanting to do a Western for so long. Any kind of comic set in like when you say Western, it's more of less like a setting. It's more of an idea, right? It's more like Man with No Name, but like it's also centered around a lot on archetypes and that kind of thing. But I really think that no matter what genre I work with, I would love to do it because I think I like working within parameters and seeing how far I can sort of push them out a little bit. Like the Mask that I just finished was it became a political satire basically, and I didn't expect that, before I read the script. But I'm like, and I had never done a political satire before, but I was like, okay, but I could also make that really super dark too. And I can sort of like work within that realm and sort of like maybe nudge the frames around a little bit and say like, okay, I can add this to that genre, So I like to think about it as no matter what genre it is, I use it as a starting point. Even a Western, I can turn it into a horror story or maybe a love story, who knows? But like, I think the important thing is this like, I draw characters or stories that people care about, or the things that make people or characters have to make choices that make them compelling. And I think any genre is capable of doing that. And but also, give me a Western. I'll do it right now. I don't care.